Why hasn't anybody been prosecuted for the slaughter of 14 innocent civilians on Bloody Sunday, January 30th, 1972? Well, all these years after, Gerry, and still nothing has been done except a report that was commissioned that took years to happen.
Well, that's more a question for the British government than it is for me. Uh, some of the families of those killed on Bloody Sunday want to see prosecutions. Some don't. You know, it's a fact that Republicans have served, thousands of Republicans have served tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years imprisonment uh, in the course of the conflict. British soldiers have not. Uh, those maybe small handful who were actually prosecuted were either released or given suspended sentences, but retained their membership of the British Army and so on. And basically, like it's not unusual. It's the British state looking after its own. That's an understandable uh, instinct of a state. It happens uh, everywhere where there has been the type of struggle that we had in Ireland. Uh, the Mau Mau, as they're called, only recently, almost 50 years later, were those who had been imprisoned by the British state and tortured were only able in the last 2 years to get some redress for what occurred to them.
Where were you at the time, and when you first learned of the news, what was your reaction that these British soldiers opened fire on these innocent civilian protesters, activists?
Well, I was coming back from Dublin, uh, and the difference between Bloody Sunday and other atrocities. For example, I come from a townland, a housing estate in West Belfast called Ballymurphy. On the 9th and 10th of August in Ballymurphy, uh, 11 uh, local people were shot dead by the parachute regiment. A short time later, in a neighbouring housing estate, 6 people were shot dead by the British parachute regiment. Coincidentally, among those killed were 2 Catholic priests in the 2 separate incidents, which is quite unusual. The only 2 priests that were killed, both trying to administer to those who had been shot. The same regiment then went on to Derry, and the difference, of course, was what happened in Ballymurphy and in Springhill happened under the cover of darkness, whereas part of what happened on Bloody Sunday was captured by the cameras, and that's the difference. And look, again, this is not unusual. The 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 big mistake that was made was that rather than face up to the demands of the civil rights movement and bring in the very modest reforms that were being asked for, the politicians handed matters over to the generals. And when that happens, then everything changes. There was no attempt to politically deal with the issues, which were basic rights issues. Generals are generals. They have a particular way of going about their business. They were there to suppress people. What happened in Ballymurphy was to teach the people of Ballymurphy a lesson. What happened in Bloody Sunday was to teach the people of Derry a lesson. That same thing has happened with Sharpsville in South Africa. It's happened in wherever you see these type of struggles, you will find incidents. They're not accidents. They're not rogue soldiers. They are part of a punitive policy which is about suppressing, demonizing, and famously in Ireland, and this was part of the strategy which was employed in other British colonies. Famously, they subvert everything. They subvert the courts, they subvert the rule of law, they subvert the media, as Sean said. I mean, I was an elected official. when I was denied the right to represent the people who had elected me. So all of that becomes part of a counterinsurgency pacification program. And what we spent maybe 20 or 30 years doing, as well as resisting British occupation, was trying to get it back to where it should have been, which is dealing with these issues as political issues, not issues of terrorism, but issues which are about the rights of citizens.